Like this opens the Pandora's box of all these things that I didn't think I could do. I'm working harder than I ever have, but I'm not willing to go in and manually set up in a software platform. The information age, the AI age, probably going to be 10 to 100 fold. I think the hardest problem to figure out is what to build. You know, it's like, okay, you can build anything. What do you build?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a return guest, Jason Akatif, this time to talk about everything AI, Claude Code, and what are we doing? What are we doing with all this AI stuff?
So yeah, everything. Right? It's like, where does it not apply? Maybe cooking food, but for a little while. But I think it applies everywhere, and I think, you know, it's really where can you apply it that you get the most bang for the buck inside of your business. And I was talking to a guy last night at Dave Stodlek's party, and you know, he was asking me, okay, I'm gonna go tackle AI, what should I do? And I think about, like, what part of your job do you hate? Not like doing, but but you have to do it. It's part of the job. So, you know, if you focus on that first, then you're fixing that problem one time. And maybe you're building an automation system that runs that problem that you no longer have to do, that you hate doing anyways, right? And I would, you know, most of the time it's like, I wouldn't tell people to go apply AI to do the thing they love. Go apply it to do the thing you hate and fill all the gaps, you know? I see a lot too where in most businesses, founders, CEOs, leaders of divisions, they see a lot of things inside of their business that could be better, but they don't have the manpower or the time or the knowledge or the money or the focus or the money, right, to go hire a team to build that out. So a lot of those things can be solved for that couldn't in the past, right? And, oh, I don't want to stand up a call center. Well, I could use retail AI and, you know, at least maybe I'm not going to get 100% of the output that I want or the outcome I want, but I'm going to get 60%. And that's going to take me 2 days to figure out how to do it. And now I don't have to set up a call center. I don't have to hire people. I don't need management. I don't need training. I don't need any of that stuff. And so I think it really opens people's opportunity to improve a lot the operations inside of their business. And, you know, I think, you know, really business is operations and finance. You know, it's math on a spreadsheet, and then it's the operations to do this stuff. And then really anything under that is building creative, buying media. These are all operational tasks at the end of the day. If you think of everything as this operational system that's operating inside of the business, you're like, where are we doing well, or where could we do better, and where can we apply AI to that? But how I think about it.
Before we started filming, we were talking about the evolution, because I really wanted the audience, not just the people that are actively using Claude Code or AI tools, but also the person that's still chatting in ChatGPT to get like scripts and angles. What was that evolution like for you, where it went from just in the chat to actually coding?
Yeah, I think we all started with chat, right? Where you're talking to it. I remember when I first started using ChatGPT, like the day it came out, and I was like, holy shit, this thing can, you know, write copy for me and, you know, do all kinds of stuff. And then I was playing with Midjourney on the image side. Oh, I can do images, right? And it wasn't there yet, but, you know, those are all like one-off tools. And I think they're great as one-off tools. However, a business and most things are processes, right? There's steps in a process. So it's like, if you've got to go to chat and you talk to chat and you say, give me this thing, now you got to take that from chat and you're the person doing the process. So I think the big shift there is, well, there's a couple of things. I'm a big Anthropic Claude fan. You've got the chat, you know, on the desktop app, you've got the chat, then you got co-work, and then you got code. So if you think about co-work, Cowork is like an agent that has access to your computer that can kind of go and do stuff for you. You can set it to do stuff. And when I got into Claude Code or I got into anti-gravity, actually that Cowork didn't exist. So I think it's kind of a great in the middle for somebody that maybe isn't comfortable building something with code and maybe understanding a file structure and some stuff that goes into that. But I think moving from just using chat to becoming an expert at Cowork can take you so much further, right? Because Cowork's essentially stringing together a lot of different chats. And you can give Cowork access to the web, you could give Cowork access to your files. And you're thinking, okay, here's a 7-step process. Well, Cowork can probably do that for you.
It almost becomes like a dynamic N8N flow.
Correct. Yeah, but all agent-based, right? Before I started working with anti-gravity a lot, which now I'm on to Claude Code, but before I started working with anti-gravity, I probably spent 6 months at N8N, just building out N8N flows and automations. And that's fine, but it's what is that noise?
It's Dave's total lock.
It's a lot of work to get. You got to get everything right. You got to understand, how posting spec work to use the HTTP module, right? Like, it's hard. It's doable. You can learn it. But if you're a non-technical person, like, the stretch between the two is pretty far. But it's a good stepping stone if you want to understand how workflows work. But yeah, if you go into Cowork, it's basically doing what N8N's doing, all automated, right? Like, you're like, hey, I need to post this over here. And it already knows, like, okay, you got headers, you got this, you got auth codes, you got fields, you got all the different stuff. So it already knows that you don't have to know how to do that. And so, my biggest thing I would push on people to do is move in the direction of Cowork if you're a total non-technical, but if you're even have a little bit of technical ability or desire, move into using actual Claude Code, or I think the easiest way to get started is anti-gravity, which is Google's IDE, and it comes with all the different models in it. And essentially, in an IDE, it's like a development experience, but essentially you've got on the left, you've got all your files, just like a file folder structure you might have in a Mac like Finder. And then it's got like a chat bot on the right. And you can literally just go in there and say, build me a landing page that, is a quiz flow that has these 5 questions and it has this. And it'll just make you that landing page, and then you'll see the files be generated on the left.
It's like VS Code is the other one?
VS Code is, so they're all based off of VS Code. VS Code is like the open source original IDE. Then you have Cursor's the same thing.
Yeah.
Anti-gravity is the same thing. The nice part about anti-gravity is you get free Opus, you get free Gemini 3, you get free, I think there's one other model.
So it's an API, it runs off tokens.
It runs off tokens, but if you have a Google Suite, you get a bunch of free tokens. Google just gives them to you. So if you start with anti-gravity, you literally have to pay nothing. So you can just download it, open it up, you got access to all the models, and I just try, there's something like very special about giving somebody that, what I would call an aha moment, where they're like, oh shit, like this opens a Pandora's box of all these things that I didn't think I could do, and I had to hire this person.
Changes everything.
Changes everything, yeah.
Immediately.
A woman named Nikki, she's actually in our group there, she's totally non-technical, and we're in another group chatting, and she's like, hey, does anybody know a developer? I'm like, why don't you just download anti-gravity and build your own pages? She's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, just download it, follow this step by step. It's a simple tutorial, anybody can do it. And then just go and make your own landing page. And she comes back to me, 5 hours later, and she's like, whoa. That is so cool.
And that's the moment that everyone needs to have, right?
Yeah, that's the moment. And, I think part of, for me, I'm like, how do I give more people that moment, right? How do I create that for them? I don't even want anything for it. I just want to be able to give people that aha moment where you're like, there's all these things that I wanted to build in my whole life, and I've got all these great ideas, but it was just like, hiring a dev team, managing a dev team, cost
Fixing
of all
it.
of that, big data, man, all this stuff, like it all goes away. And as an entrepreneur or the idea person, you can just build whatever you want.
What have been your steps of evolution? You kind of like laid out your journey, but what were the key points along the way going from chat to like building full applications that have multiple APIs and front end, back, everything tied in together that you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning, right? That, I mean, no, I don't think anybody's an expert in building complex things with AI. I think people are getting better, but I think it's with anything. It's you start small, right? Like Cursor, which is another VS Code IDE, came out maybe a year ago. It had an AI in it, and you could go in and maybe that was a year and a half ago now, and you could go in and build something. But it would like get stuck in these loops, and you'd have to figure out your way through it. And I'd keep Grok and Gemini,
You go back and
Claude,
forth.
and I go back and I'd run into a roadblock. I'd take the problem and I put it in all 4 LLMs. I'd read all the answers, and then I picked, okay, this thing's like the one that's going to work. And then I take that, I put it back into Cursor, and it's like a really time-consuming, arduous process.
But still really badass.
Yeah,
compared
still
to
bad.
hiring a dev team.
But at that point in time, I was just like, yeah, this is too much work for me right now. I don't have time to do this. Then I kind of went down the road of N8N, and then in November, right at the end of November, Google released Anti-Gravity and Gemini 3. And I downloaded it, and I was like, let me see what it's got. I'll tinker around with it a little bit and see if it makes sense to put any time into. And I don't know, it's taken like 12 hours of my day every day since. It's just all consuming, right? But so I downloaded Anti-Gravity. I built the legal brand's website called NIB Direct, the portal-facing site for consumers called Recover More. Then I went from that. I started building a back end for Recover More. I was like, oh, well, yeah, you could build the site, but I want to build an administration layer. So that was kind of the first administration side of a front end product that I started playing with. And that was fairly simple. Like you could go in and up like a blog, almost like WordPress, right? Go in and put a headline, article, whatever. But then I was like, oh, I wonder if I could hook into AI to write all this stuff, because I want to write it. Dude, that's the one thing when you get good at this stuff, you just get more and more lazy all the time. You're like, fill in fields. I don't want to fill in fields. Can you just do it for me?
How can you do it? Give me the best 5 ways.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I've just been building more and more complex stuff. And I think that's how it always goes. You find out where the problems are going to be on the smaller stuff, and you're like, okay, I feel pretty comfortable with this. I'm going to bite off another bigger chunk this time and see kind of where the edge cases are, what breaks, and
How do you add, as you keep adding and adding and adding, how do you add without breaking everything?
I think of it like building a building or a house. So you get better at planning. So I have a very standard process that I'm continually improving. But if I just take you from starting from scratch, I'm like, okay, look, we want to build a store for this plant right here, right? We want to build a whole e-commerce system. And so, anytime you build any kind of technology, you think about what is the minimum viable product that I can deliver, right? And I think where people go sideways a lot is they're like, and this feature, and this feature, and this feature, and they try and pile on all these features into this thing, and then everything's broken.
Yeah.
So you gotta think of it like a house where hey, I want to build a house. That's your first idea, right? And then it's like, maybe I'm going to sketch it on paper. Then we're going to build the architecture drawings. Then we're going to do the engineering. Then we're going to take that. So, and what that looks like in this world is I typically sit down and write somewhere between 200 and 1,000 words using Whisperflow of what I want to
Not
build.
typing like we talked about last
Yeah,
night.
yeah, not typing. Using Whisperflow. And I get a pretty good detailed summary of what I'm looking for. That works fine. I've got a little more advanced where I start to take that into some outline of data structures, but I'm not going to talk about that here. That's a little more advanced. But then I take that and I put that into Claude and I tell it, hey, here's a summary of what I want to build. I need a product requirements doc or a PRD. And what I want you to do is ask me one question at a time, because what it's going to do is it's going to ask you 20 questions at a time. So I like to tell it, ask me one question at a time. And so then we'll just go through and it'll ask me this and that and the other thing. And then as we're going through it, I think about other stuff that maybe needs to be added in. But at some point you get this.
Because you're getting ideas as you like think through it.
Think through it, or questions are being asked like, oh shoot, I didn't think about that. Yeah, we need to handle that. And here's how we should handle that edge case or this. So then you get that PRD out of there. Then I take that and put it into Claude Code and tell Claude Code I want a technical design doc. And this is where it puts on its, CTO, Chief Technology Officer type hat. And it starts to build out the architecture of what this thing's going to look like. And then for that process, we use, I think it's test-driven design or test-driven development. It's another TDD.
Yeah.
But essentially, I went and did a bunch of research, talking to Claude, about like what is best practices for software development testing. And I came up, there's like this concept called, I think it's a skeleton, walking skeleton is one concept. Another concept is Gherkin cucumber. And then you got your unit tests, and then you got your integration tests, and then you got your API tests, right? So then what I ended up with was like, I think we have 12 different sets of tests that we run for anything that gets built. So rather than just letting Claude go build, it has to build to pass these tests.
And every phase or layer.
Correct. And so everything that you deliver, you're like, okay, I want to build this feature. So that's like the beginning stuff. Like if you're in projects, always have it build a plan first for anything. I mean, unless it's like
something super simple.
Change that field or, do that, default this to that. You don't need it for that. But if you're going to make like, hey, I want to add webhooks to my project, like you got to have it build a plan. And then right after it builds that plan, my favorite thing to ask it is there any gaps in this plan that we're missing? And is this going to break anything? And what's the risk of building this? And then how do we make sure that we have tests that prevent us from building it? And, I'm talking about this stuff like I'm an expert at software engineering. I'm not.
But it is.
But it is, yeah. And I'm just curious, right? I'm like, well, there's a lot of best practices out there on this stuff already from the software development world. So like I've never read a book on Gherkin cucumber testing processes, but I had a little conversation with Claude at one point. I was like, cool, we're going to add that into our Claude MD file, or you're in another system, agents MD file. That we need to run all these tests. If we're going to do anything we build a plan for, we need to run these tests.
Because I've never done this.
Yeah.
Ever. And I feel like you only get these ideas also, obviously just talking to Claude, but also talking to other people using Claude too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I would just tell you, like, if you're really passionate about it, I'm super passionate about this stuff, and like, I want to be great at it, like, more than anything else right now. Like, it's my main focus. So, understanding that there is such a thing as a walking skeleton test when you get a bootstrap up and the system makes sure everything works with that initial foundation layer, like understanding that that's a thing, I think is important. That doesn't mean you have to be an expert at it. You just have to understand what it is and should it be in your project docs or not.
And you learn these things by just talking to Claude. Like
just talking to Claude,
treating it like it's a developer, an employee, a CPO, whatever.
Yeah, so you might go, okay, I got my walking skeleton, Gherkin cucumber integration tests, end-to-end test, which is where it uses like agent browser to go and test the UI, like actually acts like a human. That's always the final test, right? Like when you deploy to production, then you have it use agent browser, which is a layer on top of, Playwright. Layer on top of agentic friendly layer built by Vercel on top of Playwright. It goes and clicks all the buttons and levers and makes sure everything works, right? Then you got a really great feedback loop. It's testing itself, and then it goes back and fixes it, and then it's testing itself, and then it goes back and fixes it. Where you get lazy is, sometimes you're like, I don't want to wait for it to do all that, because it takes time, So that's when you start opening 4 and 5 and 7 terminals, right? Working on 3 projects at once. While you're like, I know that's going to take a while to do all that end-to-end testing through the agent browser, because it literally has to go and
actually do it.
And do it. But it
can't just build the script at that point.
Yeah,
it's actually.
I think it goes in, it takes a screenshot of the page, and then it tries to figure out where it's supposed to click. Right, so it's got to go through this process for each and every step.
Incredible.
Of that.
So incredible.
It's unbelievable. But I think you could build most things now with AI.
Pretty good.
Yeah. And then there's like on really complex projects, setting that groundwork of like the data structures, like what is a contact, what is a lead, what is a campaign, like all that core data structure, like making sure you have that solidified really well. And then when you're asking Claude to do something, you're like, make sure you use the campaign table and right? Because databases are basically just spreadsheets, right? A spreadsheet's a table. So it's like that. I know that the contacts are stored in this table. So I might say, hey, make sure you use that, because it has a tendency to want to go build new, not go look at the old.
Yeah.
And, my lead routing project I'm working on, it's got 87 tables in it, right? So, all of a sudden, I was building new webhooks out, and I'd put them on the offer level, the partner level, and the global level, and it made different everything for each. I was like, no, go back and create that into one element that you're going to use multiple times across the site, and then let's use a single table for that, because it'll start to sprawl, and then it becomes hard to maintain.
Where did this idea come from to build what you're working on right now? This is like your main project right now?
Yeah, my personal opinion is all software has to be 100% API-able, every single thing in it. So in the olden days, software was built what's called monolithic, so the front end and back end are all the same. So there was no APIs. If you built APIs, they always came after the fact.
Yeah. And
rarely did they cover all the use cases, right? So the only one I know here for a fact is has a front end and a back end is Everflow. Everflow is 100% API back end, and then a UI front end layer on top of that back end. But what that means is every single feature within Everflow you can access via Claude Code or whatever platform you're using, which becomes really, really important.
Yeah.
I put up on my GitHub tool to pull, like we're on Everflow, we work with other Everflow people, and to sync everything over, there might be 100 fields, right? All the creatives and the links and the events and all that stuff. So I was able, in like an hour to use Claude Code and stand up a little Claude Code skill that it's just like, I put in the API key and I tell it, go get me this offer. It goes and grabs all that stuff and then it loads it in my Everflow, and then it pulls the postbacks from my Everflow and it puts it over into the other system. And then I've got everything configured in 2 minutes. And that used to take somebody 20 minutes,
And
half
they'll do
an
it
hour.
wrong sometimes.
What's that?
And they might do it wrong, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, just everything is going to be that. Like, people are going to get really lazy really quickly. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. I say that in, like, I'm working harder than I ever have, but I'm not willing to go in and manually set up shit in a software platform, right? Like, I just don't want to do it, right? I want to talk with an AI. So, like, in my lead routing platform, there's an agent in there, and I just give it a lead pros for posting spec. It asks me, hey, who's the client? Then it looks if it's in the system and not. I'm going to make this buyer this. I'll set up the offer, set up the posting spec, set up the criteria, like 30 seconds. And it's incredible. That shit's complicated, right? Like, you got to get all the fields right and the list values right. And it's like, this is just like, it just does it.
Or just you talk to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think people are going to get lazy, and people are going to veer towards software that's easier to use.
I know we talked about a lot about this last night, about like the future, what comes next, not to go down that rabbit hole, but in general, why would you say more people are not taking advantage of what's available to us now? This is incredible.
Because they're humans, and humans have fear, right? So they have fear of, well, if this thing becomes good, it's going to take my job. They have fear of, I had an employee one time, and I told him, hey, you're not performing very well. Here's 3 books to read. 1 sales book, 1 marketing book, and I forget what the other, personal development books. And I was like, read these books. It'll make a difference. I think you'll do better after you read these books. And they sat on his desk there, and I'd come by, and every once in a while, just, how are you doing reading the books? And it's like, I don't know, whatever, a month went by, and he said to me, he's like, I asked him another time, and he said to me, well, Jason, I'm afraid of losing my job. So I don't think it makes sense to read those books because I'm going to get fired anyways. And that's how that really like resonated with me. And that's how people think. Like, why do this work if it's just going to replace me anyways? So I think there's a lot of people that think that way.
Like a mentality of most people.
I think anything new, change is scary, right? We're really at a time right now that I think of it a lot like the industrial age to the information age. And if you go back and study history and all the people that were left behind that worked in factories, because we offshored all the factory stuff and we became an information-driven country, right? White collar work, right? Services and information, right? All the technology boom that we've seen over the last however many years. So we're right there again. But we're right at the beginning of it. It is very apparent. Super early. Super early. But we're going from the information age to the AI age. And the transformation from the information age to the AI age is probably going to be 10 to 100-fold the transformation between the industrial age to the information age. And so it's going to be a lot of people that are, I gave a talk at Affiliate Summit, and like the main point of the talk was like, here's all the cool shit you can do, and you better learn this if you want to remain valuable in a company, right? I saw a study the other day, and it surveyed all these business owners. I think it was like 300 business owners. I saw it on Twitter. It's probably clickbait, but I thought it was interesting. They did a whole survey, like, hey, do you want AI in your business? Is AI in your business? If it's not, why? What do you need in order to get it into your business? And it was every single one of them had massive budgets to deploy towards it. They wanted it, but they had no idea how to execute on it. They're just like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do, right? It's like, do I use Claude? Do I use Claude Code? Do I use OpenClaw? Do I? Yeah, but like, somebody's got to go learn all that. Those are all tools, right? Yeah, somebody's got to go, and it's so new that like there's very few experts out there. Like, I don't want to brag, but I'm probably in the top 0.0001% of people using Claude Code to the level that I'm using it to. There's those people that I talk to on a regular basis that are there with OpenClaw and some of the Clawbot stuff. So there's people that are figuring this stuff out, and they're not well college educated. They're just curious and hungry.
Putting time in.
Yeah, they're putting the time in. They see what's possible, and they just are trying lots of shit, right? And like that's how you learn. You just try stuff and make mistakes. And I think human nature, I want to do a good job. I want to do it right. Well, that's actually flies exactly in the face of growth and development, for the most part, right? Like, growth and development is like, go take a risk, go break something. In my early times with anti-gravity, I would just tell it to do something that I knew was going to break it. But I thought about it, I was like, I'm just going to see if I can unwind it. If I break it, I'm going to see if I can bring it back. Because that gives you more power. That gives you more, you get less afraid by doing those things. And I think just most people aren't programmed that way.
But also there's so many right ways to do it. And I think you don't realize that till you start using it.
Right.
There's not just one way to build whatever solution or product or tool you have in your mind. There's a 1,000 different ways it could do it for you. Not even you having to do it.
Yeah.
You can literally ask Claude Code, give me 1,000 different ways where we could do this thing. And it'll give you 1,000 different ways.
Yes.
And they're all probably going to work.
And I think that's another kind of aha moment is like, hey, John, how do I do X? Like, you don't have to do that. Claude already knows the answer. Like, I don't need to come ask you questions for the most part. Now, if it's something cutting edge or interesting like that, yeah, of course. But for all the basics of media buying, he already knows how to do that. So I hooked up Claude Code to my Google account, and I think I was telling you this the other night. And I got the API key from Google. I sent it in and it gave me a 10-bullet list. It's like, here's all the keywords to cut. Here's a bunch of keywords to add. Here's the prompt to improve your landing page quality score. Right? It just went down this list of all these different things. And then some outside of the box stuff. It's like, I forget what it was exactly, but it's like, you're approaching the problem like this. Maybe if you approach it like this, you could capture another audience, right? I didn't tell it to do any of that stuff. I just said, can you please look at my Google search account for, I think it was rideshare, and give me feedback on, how do we improve it?
And it's crazy.
Yeah. And that's today. And what everybody says is, what's the worst it's ever going to be? Only going to get better. So I think people just don't set aside the time. They procrastinate.
Right.
They're like, I know I need to do it. I set up a beginners group and a bunch of people joined. I don't think one person has gone through the tutorial. It's just it's the people just, I'm busy, I have other stuff going on, whatever the reason is. But
I think you also create an advanced group.
Yeah.
Much more intense, but much, obviously, people are in there actively building stuff and sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, I built that because I couldn't find a group of people that were talking about the things at the level that I was talking about. So I put that Built with AI advanced group together so that, I could just bring like-minded people together. And I have a lot of people that are my friends that join, and they're like, I can't keep up. Yeah, so that's why I was like, that's not a good place for people to start. It's pretty intimidating.
There's some super smart people in there.
Yeah.
And they're all doing different things and they're all
Different
doing it
ways.
correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they're not doing correctly at first and they're sharing what didn't work and what they learned. It's like, it's super cool. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, it's there's people in there building a lot of automated, like, creative stuff. I think is super interesting that I haven't really got that deep into myself. I mean, I've done a good amount of it, like, but haven't like built the systems out to automate it in our business. There's people in there that are making good headway on the media buying side. People like I'm working on a bunch of agentic work, like building custom agents. So Claude Code is essentially a harness, and a harness is like a bunch of rules and Claude MD pile, and it's a bunch of framework around a large language model that makes it do what it does. So there's something called Anthropic's Agentic SDK, and so I'm using the Agentic SDK to build my own harness to operate my lead routing platform, right? So that's kind of a fun thing that I'm playing with now that, it's like, okay, I know how to build the software. That's fine. Now, how do I build an agent layer on top of that like anybody in this room that doesn't know how to configure a lead campaign or a call campaign
And now do it.
can just go in and talk to the agent and it can set up and configure everything for you. Super cool.
What's the biggest piece of advice you would want someone to know that's looking to start actually using Claude Code and all these tools available?
I'd tell anybody, start with anti-gravity. Spend, so on my builtwithai.com site, there's under resources, there's stage 1 and stage 2 getting started. Like 30-minute investment, and you can have a hosted landing page that you can show your friends. Like, to me, that's the aha moment that people need. And it's just a matter of them setting aside that small amount of time.
10 minutes.
30, probably 30,
Yeah.
Somewhere between 30 and 1 hour to really kind of tinker with it and play with it. And, but I think that if they do that, they'll understand, okay, shit, now I can control files here, and actually I can hook into a server. Oh, that's super interesting. Like I never knew anything.
Why would I do that? Claude, why do we hook into the server?
Right. Well, I mean, I think so many people in this room build landing pages or websites or whatever it is, to capture leads or make sales. Like, that's just nuts and bolts tools in the business, right? And, the old way was always go find a, offshore developer and have them code everything up for you. But you don't have to do that anymore. And, I think one of the greatest things about AI is there's a concept called communication overhead. And what communication overhead says, I tell you, you put it into a project plan, that goes to somebody else, maybe that goes to somebody, right? Like, there's a lot of overhead to get the work done. With AI, there's none of that overhead. Like, if you really know how to use the tools,
Just go do
it's
it.
like you are talking directly to the developer that's way smarter than you are, and it's figuring out all the problems for you. And all that communication overhead and all that stuff is gone. And that's why you can go so much faster, because all that communication overhead takes so much time.
Yeah.
I built multiple software platforms with full development teams. Like, it's expensive, but I think we had 30 developers at one point in time, and but then you've got to have a Scrum Master, and you've got to have a QA team, you got to have a CTO, you got to have technical project managers, right? Like, it's expensive and time consuming, and then you've got to get it out of your head and to them. You went through this, right? And trying to get it out of your head to them in some kind of fashion that they can understand what you're saying, and then they build something, you get it back a week or two later.
And you start up.
Yeah, and you're like, no, that's not right at all. You need to make all these changes, right? It goes back through that loop again, and 2 weeks later, it comes back.
And it's fucked up again.
Yeah, exactly. And now you're like, yeah, you get it back, it's fucked up, but you're like, yeah, I expect it to be fucked up, right? Change this, do that, fix that part, make this thing better, whatever, and it's good to go. So I don't know.
So you built builtwithai.com.
Yep.
People should go there. They should register. You can join the advanced group, the basic, the free group. They're both free, but the basic group as well. And how can they connect with you? Ask questions, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, groups, Telegram. I'm Jason Akatif on Telegram. I'm everywhere. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and all the places. But no, I love talking to anybody that's passionate about this stuff, doing cool shit with it, right? I think the hardest problem to figure out is what to build. It's like, okay, you can build anything. What do you build?
Yeah.
How
do you spend your time?
Yeah. Well, when I was early in my career in my 20s, it's like everything was an opportunity and I was going to chase it all. Now that I'm 51, I've chased a lot and I've spent years of my life investing into building things that died or went nowhere, and built an e-commerce brand up to 40 million a year in 3 years' time that basically the chip shortage and tariffs and Facebook 14.5 made the whole business go upside down. So I've spent a lot of time of my life building things that ultimately went away. So, I encourage anybody that goes down this path, like, think a lot about what you're building and why you're building it. I was like, I'm going to build a ad building system. It's like you and 8,000 other people, right? Like, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But do it to learn. Don't necessarily do it because it's going to make you a bunch of money. And I think we'll have ad building systems out that are much better than anybody could build here, that somebody built, with AI tools.
Yep.
But they're just better at it. So.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, brother.
We'll do another follow-up podcast in probably a few months. We'll have a million things to talk about again.
Of course.
Make sure to connect with Jason and check out buildwithai.com.
Yeah. Thanks.